So our readings start with this semester. Um, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, five first books of the Old Testament, and the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So that's 9 books. That's basically we'll be going through three a month, and the semester is October, November, and December. So we'll get through those 9 books, and at the end of each month there'll be a little bit of a review, bit of a chat. What we're looking at, some reading, but can get quite through it. We're going to get started, and the first book we're going to read in the first 10 days is going to be Genesis. Now you can obviously revisit this video and come back. I do have some notes for you, just verses and chapters, just to have a think of when you're reading through. So obviously the first part, the creation, is very important. But start and look at chapter 6 and verse 12, and you see the effects of fear. At 14, um, the battles and Abram's strength of the family. Now, the land given to Abram, and note the current worldly hostility, and to drive Israel out of this land. It has its foundations in evil and Christophobia, and it's a rebellion, direct rebellion against God. You look and wonder why this happens with Israel and not other nations. It's direct rebellion against God. There's no other description of it. Chapter 16, 17, Sarah and Hagar, and stories what happened. Now, if these things happen in the church these days, we'll be raising our eyes. So that's something to think about and ponder, because God doesn't change. So godliness doesn't change. And we need to have a grasp on that when we look at things that happen in the Old Testament and think, well, why is this happening? Has God changed his plans or his mind? God is consistent, and there are reasons why things happen, and we need to understand that. Chapter 18, Abraham now pushing his luck with numbers. Chapter 19, lots of daughters against the customs. The angels came to Sodom and the whole town. Such a despicable, destitute environment in that town, where all the men came around and wanted to. I'm not gonna. I can't even bring myself to say it, but wanted to have their way with the angels, and that's just so sordid. But that was the world. Have a look around you at the world now, and you'll realise that times are coming. Now, chapter 20. Have a look at that. Abraham calls Sarah his sister, and he's already stuffed up with this. He's stuffed up before, and he has an army that's very strong. He defeated a coalition of several kings, but now he's still living in fear. One thing we can't live in with God is in fear. Now, note the presence and communication, the understanding of God these days. Everyone was knew God around, and knew God was around, and there was open communication, and the understanding of God's existence was prolific. Not so these days. Now, also look at the sanctity of marriage and the unusual circumstance around Lot and his daughters. We'll touch on this at the end. Now, also the women of Abimelech's household were temporary barren. Now, how long is this going on? So you've got to realize that Sarah was there. We're not really given a passage of time, but Sarah's there. They were kept from being intimate with her, but during this time they figured out that everyone was barren. That's going to take a while, so this must have been going on a fair while for them to figure out that there's something going on, because all the people in the house were barren. So it had to be a while before they realised things were going on. We also find out that Sarah is his sister. So nowadays that would raise a few eyebrows, but again, have a walk, read all this with understanding wisdom. That's what we need to do. But hey, Abraham has a good scam. Tell the rulers, it's my wife's my sister. They take you in. God intervenes. They get a bit scared, they get upset, you've done them wrong, and they send you on the way with much wealth. The guy made a lot of wealth. I'm sorry, not being disrespectful. Um, he made got a lot of wealth out of that. Not saying he did it as a particular scam or just a bit tongue in cheek, a bit irrelevant, but heck, he did that a couple of times and he should have known better. But again, you don't know, you can't judge because of the situations of the times. And someone wouldn't sleep with someone's wife or take someone's wife, but if he was a widow, fair game. So yeah, he's probably saw his life was in great danger. Chapter 25, verse 18. Here's the enmity between the Arabs and the Jews. Chapter 25. God gave up his birthright. Now I would have thought, in my ignorance, that giving up Esau gave up his birthright, that it kind of could be maybe reversed if there was deceit involved, but apparently not. It's a done thing, but we don't understand the impact or the value of a birthright. And in those days, it's probably something like a written a written will. Now, and once it's in down there, you can't reverse it. So Rebecca is also Isaac's sister. Again, Isaac's trained this deal now. You'd think they'd learn. Interesting times. They had surrogate parents, concubines, and polygamy abounds. So once again, we need to understand the times and the customs, because God doesn't change. Leah, God rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband. That's chapter 30, verse 18. So there's a bit of unjudgmental thought there. See, there's ages having children proliferating was a very, very big thing. It's very important. And God, remember, told Adam and Eve and told Abraham, have descendants, your descendants go and have babies, basically. Get lots of children out in the world. We'll look at that a little bit more later on. The unknown wickedness of don't know what the heck did, but he ticked God off and copped it. So I haven't got to anywhere else where I might talk about what he did. But again, we're talking about the importance of, I use the word breeding, increasing mankind. God told Adam and Eve, go. He told Abraham, your descendants will be numbered. So here's Onan, who's not doing the deed with his dead brother's widow. And God's not pleased with that. So again, increasing the numbers of humankind was important and part of God's plan. And so you've got to realize that a lot of things that happen that we might look at now and go, oh, I don't know about that. Part of God's plan. So you've got to have a deep understanding of God's purpose, God's way, and understand where it is you need to understand it. Understand where it is, you just need to accept it. And that's hopefully the journey that will take us. Chapter 41, Pharaoh's dream, 7 years of famine. Now, 7 years of famine is pretty harsh. And you look around nowadays, people jumping up and down about climate change, which I'm absolute skeptic. Not that climate doesn't change, but it's of its impact and how they're doing it. It's just all wrong. But they jump up and down any little famine somewhere and say, "Oh, this is man-made famine, etc. This is climate change, etc." Here it is. Over 2,000 years ago, we're having huge 7-year famines in great areas of land, right through Egypt, Canaan. So it's not new. It's not new stories. And in the end, near the end, chapter 44 does speak about divination. They took Joseph's cup that he used for divination. Now, if you read later in the Bible, divination is actually addressed as a sin. So again, where is the contradiction lie? There's not a contradiction there. Joseph, speaking through the word of God, was God's instrument, and he used that divination to how he used it, I don't know. But he used it, and other people have used it later. I think Daniel, we'll have a look at that, but used it to communicate and get understanding of God's purposes. people who just go out and use divination, it's like driving a car without a license. You're not using it right. So that's God saying using divination is something you should not do, because basically you're dealing with powers you know nothing about. There are people that God has selected that understand it, and so you can't say, "Oh, God said divination's no good, therefore something's wrong with what Joseph's doing." In other words, it was a power he knew how to handle, um, and he understood God and had a good communication with God. We're going to leave it there. Go and read Genesis, and see you again in 10 days' time. Cheers.